Hello, and I'm Sarah Crompton, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to the What's on Stage podcast. It's me on my own out in the field interviewing the wonderful playwright Beth Steel, whose play Till the Stars Come Down is about to open at the Theatre Royal Haymarket, having had a successful run at the National Theatre last year, where I so totally adored it. I gave it 5 stars. And actually, in the subject we talked about in the last podcast, I did actually get to my feet and joined in the standing ovation, which is very, very rare, as regular listeners will know. So, Beth, delighted to welcome you, and I am really thrilled Till the Stars Come Down is having a West End run.
Oh, me too.
Did you think it would? I mean, was it a play that you felt had got legs when you were writing it?
No, not at all. I don't think you can actually know. I mean, you must feel this, you must know this even more because, of course, you are a critic. But there's so many times where you go and see a show and maybe you love it and other people don't. Or people love a show that you don't.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can actually anticipate the alchemy of the play and the production with an audience. You just don't know. So I really didn't. And I was completely surprised when it was so embraced.
Yeah, it really took off like a rocket. I mean, people just loved it. And it's set at a wedding. I came up with a line that I was quite proud of, which was that it was like Chekhov on Heineken, because it reached the parts that other plays.
My favourite quote, Sarah. My favourite quote.
I was so proud of that. It came to me in the car on the way home and I thought, oh yeah, that's quite good. It's set at a wedding, but it is a very traditional family drama in that sense that everything's going on there because you know, there's happiness and joy and misery and politics and family rifts and all those things. What was your starting point for it? Where did it come to you?
2 things, but I will talk into the Chekhov thing as you've just mentioned it. After finishing my play, The House of Shades, which was at the Almeida before Till the Stars, I felt for the first time I didn't know where to go. I felt almost like I was locked back in that house of those shades and I couldn't get out. And it took me a while to realise what I actually wanted to do was write another family drama. And then I panicked because I thought, I can't possibly hear another 10 voices.
Right.
I can't create a narrative again. And then I realised, well, you know, Chekhov had done that.
Kept on and on doing
you know. And what's so beautiful about those, you know, those late great plays is that they are all incredibly different. The Seagull is not Uncle Vanya, which is not the Cherry Orchard, which is not the labyrinth maze of the 3 sisters. They are all so different, and yet they are all unmistakably him. And they are all, he's digging out from the same territory. He's got this small plot of land where revolution, family, love, loss, everything is in it. And really, I sort of took him as my courage. He gave me courage. And I became obsessed with him. I just started reading the plays obsessively over and over. And I mean, I would go to sleep at night listening to them. Right. I would cook, listening to discussions of his work. I would read all the letters. And I knew that I didn't want to adapt or map onto it. But I sort of felt like I was a snake and like I'd swallowed it whole.
Brilliant.
And I was like masticating it down until there was only the slightest residue left. But some people will see it.
Yeah.
You saw it.
Yeah. I did love it. And I mean, I'm fascinated because obviously I think it's true that all your work is based on where you come from, which would be true for everybody, but you come from a place that isn't often reported from.
Yes.
So weirdly, you come from Mansfield, don't you, Nina?
I come from Warsop,
right,
which is near to Mansfield, which is Nottinghamshire.
Yes. And there is this weird Nottinghamshire link in the National Theatre because you and James Graham and now Indu Rupasinghe all have come from that. So suddenly it's like the playwriting theatre capital of the world, but it's not what it's known for. It's known for being a former mining community, working class in the main. And I thought it was so interesting that you talked in interviews about wanting to raise political issues about why that part of the country is thinking and voting the way it is. And yet you've found a way of doing that without ever saying this is a political play or this is a state of nation play. Do you find, I mean, House of Shades was much more a state of nation play, and I felt was possibly regarded toughly, because I did really admire it, and I thought it got quite a hard rap because it was big in its sweep. I mean, how much was writing Till the Stars Come Down a response to the response to that?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I definitely had an experience around the time of Brexit where I felt a disconnect from the people that was around me where I live now in London and my life, theatre, that they just didn't understand communities like mine at all. And that's, you know, there's also tons of communities I don't understand.
Yeah.
But we don't understand them because they are not represented for us. They are a newspaper article, or they are, you know, is it a voice box? What's the thing where someone shoves a microphone on someone on the street? Vox box. You know. Also, I'd never thought that where I'm from was what could be in a theatre. What could be. I knew where Polly Stenham's family, that would be great. I knew that, and that was great. I just felt paralysed about the idea of making a narrative out of where I'm from, basically, and finding those characters and bringing them to big main stages in big grandeur productions. And I felt excited at the time of thinking, but actually now where I'm from, there's all of these layers of strata of history and the present, and they're all the fault lines. They're all actually here in this village, which is mine. How is this possible? You know, screw Westminster. That's not interesting, you know. And that is why The House of Shades is politically charged. The play detonates from within, from the personal, but it is also shaped by from without, from the political. I felt when I did Till the Stars Come Down that I wanted to pull back further that political. I wanted to absorb it into the texture and the tapestry and the context of the play, so that actually somebody could watch it and not think it's a state of the nation at all. They don't see that. Why? They just see working class characters and story and this, and they don't see it. Fine.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
You don't have to see it, because guess what? I am not signposting it for you. I also feel like there's been a lot of really important, brilliant, vivid, angry, charged theatre, which has been very direct, and that's because it's needed to be. I've seen a lot of that, and I've been so taken with a lot of that. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. The beauty is creating it in the fabric.
And you do that beautifully. I mean, because obviously the wedding is between the very gentle sister and of the three sisters. There are three sisters in this play, and Marek, who is a Polish immigrant to the area who's working, and the subject of people coming into work in Nottinghamshire comes up, and in the warehouses and so on. So the politics is all very lightly touched, and it is incredibly funny. I always think there's danger talking about this play that you make it sound too serious. It's incredibly funny, rather mystical as well. It's got a sense that you talk a lot about the constellations and the planets and so on. And I'm really intrigued, you said that came to you. Was that what came to you in a dream? Because you said you had one bit of this play that came to you in a dream.
I did.
I've always wondered if it was
which was the dream.
Yes, which bit was the bit?
It was. I was a few months into writing it, which, to clarify for me, means I've almost got nothing.
Right.
I've got tiny fragments. It's a very slow build for me of digging it out slowly. And I was asleep at night, and I woke up in the middle of the night having experienced a dream where I saw a long table with a bride and groom and the family, and I saw everybody in a moment of happiness and joy and clapping and this and that, and the bride stood up and put her fingers together and stopped time.
Right.
And then she sat down and she looked at each of her family members and realised that this was the peak of happiness, that it could not get beyond this. And as soon as she had that realization, a drop of rain landed in a glass, and then another drop landed, and another, and the heavens opened. Right. That's what I dreamt.
Brilliant. What a dream.
So I wrote that down the next morning at on my laptop as a stage direction, because of course I had no dialogue before it, none after it. I didn't know what it was. And then eventually I realised that it would lead into build towards the end of the act 2. So that was a dream. The celestial, the planet dance. I'm very interested in wonder. And the fact that it says on the copy of the book that it's a family that is larger in life. And I actually disagree with that. I think it's impossible to be larger than life. Yeah. And I'm so interested in, why can't you have absolute Heineken, vulgarity, laughter, spanks, knickers, sex, all of this, and then actually break out into what we're actually in, which is something magnificent and special, and that there's a mystery in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in bringing that, and I'm really interested in bringing that to lives, and that means the characters that are on stage, which you don't normally see like that. They're not allowed to have, for an audience, to have a romance with them.
Yeah.
Right? That they're like, oh my God, look at you. Like, look at this. Because exactly, that's how big you are. You know, here's these tiny lives and the postage stamp place that I'm investigating. But actually, this goes all the way up to what is above us.
Yeah, to the heavens. And I think that's really interesting about, being allowed to have a romance with characters. Do you think it's, hard for women writers to write family dramas? Do you think that there's a sense in which family dramas are regarded as a woman's form? Because it's true in the novel as well. My favourite novels are family dramas. I like the Forsyth Saga, I like the Casalets, I like all those things. I like those big, sprawly things, which I think is exactly what you're saying of having a romance with the characters, allowing yourself to see your life and everything else through them. But I always think they get slightly sniffily treated by maybe by literary critics and so on. Do you think it is difficult to say, I am going to write a family drama as a woman?
I feel so compelled by what I'm doing. I don't think that. Right. I think those things always come after a reflection about sometimes how something's received or what's noted or not noted, and whether that would be different with a man, for example. So, for examples, words like State of the Nation. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that, that would always be much more comfortable in the mouths of people if it was about a family drama written by a man.
Right.
That's what I mean,
yes.
for example.
So it's described differently. So one's a family drama, one's a stage, isn't it? Yeah, that's interesting. How do you feel about having your players and the new writing in the West End, which, the National's brilliant. And, I was thinking this morning, it remains always my favourite theatre. It's got a feeling to it. And people come here who've discovered it and have a sense of, being part of something like National. But the West End is different. It's putting new writing into a commercial setting. How do you feel about that aspect of it?
I never imagined it. To be perfectly honest, as soon as I wrote The House of Shades, I just thought, I have actually found my voice.
Right.
I knew I'd found my voice and my vision of what I could do that wasn't already there. And I also thought, well, then that confines me as well. I will never be on the West End, which, fine. If you're at the Almeida and the National Theatre for the rest of your life, amazing. It's not, what matters to me is the work, not where it is. So I really genuinely did not imagine it in the West End at all, because I just didn't think you could write a play set where I'm from and it have that breadth of appeal. The fact that it has, I think it's going to be banging in the West End. I think it's going to be a bonfire, because that's, the amount of people that came up to me that has said they'd not been to the theatre before. It's like, you can be Ian Rickson and absolutely lose your shit and your mind on it. And you can be a person that has never seen a thing at the theatre and you can lose your mind on it. It's very rare where you have work which speaks to the both.
Yeah.
And so actually, hopefully that will work in the West End. There is an offer there for everybody.
Actually, as you say that, it very much represents an older tradition of new writing in the West End, of people like, going back sort of Rattigan and Coward, who are writing dramas that were essentially entertainment. There was no doubt that you would go and have a good time, but that, have sustained their interest because they are about university students. And also, when I was growing up, there was an awful lot of Acheborn in the West End and sort of, my sense is kind of more comic, truthful work, the sense that you were going along to have a laugh, but you were also going to learn something about something. And I always felt that with Acheborn. And again, family dramas so often. Does it worry you who can go and see things now in the West End? Do you feel that that ticket prices are an issue of?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And we've got prices that are currently starting for previews at £15.
Right.
And the National has a policy of having £25 tickets in the West End.
Right.
Are they the best seats in the house? No. I cannot tell you how many productions I've seen in the Gods that have changed my life.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I've sat my entire life until the last 3 years. And I'm still prone, to a little God's seat if it's, I don't know, £150 in the stalls in the centre. I'm just not going to pay that. Yeah. So it is. But it's also because it is very rare to take a piece of new writing into the West End, which is about the play, the production, and an excellent company of actors. It is not about a star.
Right.
By the way, I love star shows. I want to go and see Mark Strong. Oh my God. I want to go and see Leslie Manville. I want to go and see Jodie Comer. There's room for all of it, but the all is key. What we don't want to do is end up like Broadway, where the only way a play can get in and get on is by someone famous, because then actually someone famous actually wants to do a revival because they want to test themselves against Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller and And also, you're not going to have a beautiful play like mine that's an ensemble.
Right. Yeah, which it really is.
It's an ensemble.
Yeah.
It isn't a one-person vehicle.
Yeah. So you have to go because you want to see the play.
Yeah.
And that's really true. Your own background, of course, is so untheatrical. So I wanted to ask
it felt pretty theatrical sometimes.
Actually, it's true. Let's define theatrical. You left school at 16. You didn't do theatre studies. I loved it when the Stage interviewed recently and it says qualifications and you put not, which I felt was really modest. But what drew you to theatre? What's the starting point, having had really no encounter with it? Why? What do you love?
I saw David Harrow as Blackbird.
Did you just see it because you booked a ticket? How did
Somebody told me about it. Was Date.
It was Date.
Okay. That took me, but they'd been told.
Heavy play for a date, I've got
to say. I can't tell you who the person was on the date, but I remember the play vividly. So yeah, it didn't work out for them. I had been to the theatre. I was very much looking for my place in the world. It didn't occur to me that it could be writing. That would be absurd.
Because
I would have gone, oh God, I don't even know where to put a full stop. God, I don't know how to write a paragraph. I left school at 16. I didn't even know I'd been waitressing. I didn't even know how to write a CV.
Right.
I wasn't like in an office even, just doing basics. But I had such a profound experience watching that play. Within 15 minutes, I thought, this is the most exciting night of my life. And when I left at the end of it, and I know this sounds bizarre, but I knew I could do it.
Right. So what was it about that particular play? It's an interesting play. I always think Blackbird is a really interesting play. And oddly, we talked about it on the podcast before that. I feel it it is a really impactful piece.
Yeah.
Quite simple, some levels, but obviously very complex in what it says. What was it about that particular play that made you think, wow?
Well, I think, certainly the operatic scale of emotion is what I'm very drawn to. You know, you can have a heath and a teacup, a storm, but I want to be out on the heath.
Right,
I am that kind of creature.
Yeah.
So the scale of the emotion, the stylization of it, that it is not Netflix dialogue. It is not chat. This is to power a play, to charge the language, to keep going. It's not people just like mooching about. There's plays that defy that and do that, but I'm talking about generally. And I think what made me think I could do it was because it was two people. I know that there's a child that appears at some point, but, it is a two-hander. It just really made me understood that, oh my God, dialogue is not like flat prose. It is people wrestling with each other. It is an elastic band between them, and they are coming closer and pulling apart. And when is it going to snap? And when does it break? And how? Do you know what I mean? It felt sculptural, and I felt I understood it because I wasn't academic. It was just obvious. So I had a Matrix moment. Where you're like, you can see all the pixelations.
Right.
Basically.
Brilliant. And so what steps did you then take? So you walk out of the theatre.
So I walked out. It did take me another 6 months. Dump the date. It did take me about another 6 months before I actually started to write. But I went and bought the play from Blackwell's on Charing Cross Road. Rest in peace. TK Maxx now. And I read it obsessively, which I'd not done before. And I can't tell you how many times I read that play. And in fact, there'd be times where I'd be walking out the house and I'd have 2 hours to kill. I'd not have it with me. I'd go and buy it again to literally read it there and then. I actually, like Chekhov, I digested it down so much, except then I didn't have the skill. So what I did was I replicated it. So the first thing that I wrote is the sequel that David Harrower doesn't know exists, thankfully, because I didn't have that skill yet. And so it taught me how to write. And I was waitressing. I was setting my alarm for like 4 a.m. to write before I did my shift. And then I'd come back, and I did that for about a year, became ill, but got a place on the Royal Court Writers Programme.
Right. So did you send in the original?
I sent David Harrower sequel. And again, I suppose I genuinely thought that because I didn't know anyone and because it was writing, that I was going to be working in my bedroom for years. And I was so intoxicated. I remember, I used to get bills and bills and bills, like collecting at the bottom of my staircase, and I just stepped over them. I was in a world of my own.
Right.
Like, I let the world fall away from me, actually, and I just went inwards, and yeah. So when I got the invitation to that group, and it was like a super group thing as well. It was writers like Nick Payne and Molly Davies and Polly Sednam. So they'd already done all the other stuff. And I kind of couldn't believe I was on it. And actually it would have done me good to have done the basics because I hadn't read enough plays and didn't know a thing. But it gave me confidence. And I'm still a big advocate I'm aware of how difficult the industry is. And I'm aware of how many opportunities have contracted. But this is what's important to say. It's like you can send something off, be no one, and someone reads it. They do that here.
Yeah,
that's extraordinary.
Yeah. So that everything, if you really, really want to write, there are still these places you can send to.
Yeah.
So Royal Court National. Hampstead, I think, still reads.
Bush.
Yeah, so there is still that opportunity.
Yeah, there's less, for sure.
And money must always be disincentive. You won the Evening Standard First Play Award for Wonderland, didn't you? And Or talent. It wasn't your first play, so it was
It was
talented
my
playwright.
second
So,
play.
talented.
And it's a most promising playwright, and it's Charles Winter Legacy Fund.
But and that does come with a sum of money. And I was struck that you said somewhere that you'd really husbanded that money to be able to continue to write, because presumably that really is the great disincentive for writers from less wealthy backgrounds, is that ability to actually write rather than earning their
because
living.
I did the other first. I did the waitressing and the writing, and I made myself ill. I mean, except I got my first play on, got on. And, but you might need 7 years of writing like that before you get your first play on. You burn out.
Yeah.
You can't sustain that kind of practice. So, yes, I sort of, what it was? I didn't want to do screen.
Right.
And I am a theatre creature, obsessed. And you know what it is as well, Sarah? For years, I could only earn £10 an hour waitressing. That was the cap of what I could get. And when I found I could write, and someone might say we couldn't write very well or you're not, I knew. And it was a project. And I don't care about like year 1, year 2, play 1, play 2. I care about the long haul, the body of work. And I knew that that's what I was doing. And I didn't want to go and write stuff just for money when I'd found something so special and felt like a gift. Not that I'm gifted, but it felt like I'd been given something. And I thought, I don't want to do it for money. And I don't have dependents, and that makes a difference. And I was in that position. So then when I got the Evening Standard Award, I did keep it and eked it out. I did go to Barcelona for a weekend.
Good spend. But it's interesting. Do you think to encourage that kind of diversity, there's a lot of emphasis on increasing diversity in playwriting and acting generally, but actually the bit that possibly has got harder, has gone backwards, is about working class writers and people from less wealthy backgrounds. Is it just money? Are there other factors that you think could help people have the confidence to feel that they could make the discovery you
Well, it is also
made?
Representation, as it always is. I mean, but now so many people, and they did actually with the House of Shades as well, come up to me, normally in a theatre context, and they might be ushers, or they might be working in the bar, or they might be watching a play, and say, your plays have meant so much to me. I'm from working class background, and I didn't think it would be possible. You've got to see, as I just said to you earlier on, about thinking that I'm not going to get a show at the National if I put Mansfield on a stage.
Right.
They're not going to think that's intelligent, right? Which is ridiculous, but that was a mental block. So you do also need to see that work, given the scale it deserves. Yeah.
And I must say, from my point of view also, I feel that you're so brilliant at, I did say that the party in Till the Stars Come Down was a wedding that I had been to. I do feel it's recognisable.
Are you anti-Carol, Sarah?
I'm not quite anti-Carol. But I do think definitely that moment where the bride tries to poo herself into fitting the wedding dress was a scene that absolutely resonated with me. And I think that's also true. It's about authentic women's voices, because you do get women on stage. It's not that there's not the Hedda Gabler's or whatever, but it is that sense of people that and people you've been with. I don't hear them very often.
Yes.
On stage.
Yes.
Actually. Don't hear them that often on screen. I mean, I do feel that sense of different voices.
Yes. And very unfiltered. Yeah. Very unfiltered. And it's actually really gorgeous to see women who are capable of being aggressive. Yeah. Actually. And just have a totally different being. And incredibly funny.
Yeah. Really funny. Really funny, because women are funny when they're on their own. I always say that
Yes.
the great advantage of being a woman writer is that you get to sort of go to the loo with
Yeah.
people. And then you realise that in a powder room or a loo, and you've got loads and loads of women in there, they are invariably funny.
Yeah.
It's a completely different dynamic. I cannot imagine, this is a very bizarre tangent, but I cannot imagine a male loo being funny in the same way. You know, it's just like you bond over whatever you're doing. And I think that is one of the lovely qualities of your play, that you hear those people, you hear those families, but you really, really hear those women talking. You make this very interesting distinction between theatre and screen all the time, which I don't think most people do. I mean, nearly everybody, especially among your cohort of playwrights, has moved across to do some screen work.
Yes.
And you very strongly that you don't want to do that. And I understand what you say about the gift, feeling you don't want to give it away, but why do you feel screen is so different in terms of your response?
So film I enjoy. I don't enjoy, as in enjoy. So first of all, I should say I have not had a telly in like 15 years.
Right.
So I don't watch it.
So when you say tech phone,
I mean,
really
it's
are.
real. What I find so exciting of writing and impossible and frustrating and therefore amazing, because it's a restriction, is how are you going to do all of this in 2 hours? How are you going to do all of this in 2.5 hours? And that is the same of the start to the finish of a film and the start to the finish of a play, and the sort of keeping something going for 6 hours and 8 hours and 10 hours. I sort of don't understand. I get it. It's those character modulations over time. But that doesn't appeal to me.
Right.
It doesn't appeal to me.
So is the compression of the theatrical, so the idea that everything is there in your moment.
It's the glorious thing of theatre where you can't just cut to this, cut to that, cut to this place. Oh my God, how do you actually move it all with what people say? Because actually, people say very little. Do you know what I mean? How do you make it active?
Right.
It's so, I love the restrictions of theatre. They just excite me.
Yeah. Well, you have, as you write, you do produce wonderful plays within those restrictions. And Till the Stars Come Down is a play I wholeheartedly recommend. I can't wait to see it again with a new cast and a new setting, which presumably it's, because it was in the round, it's now in a different setting.
No, so we have half of the cast are returning.
Yeah.
And half the cast are new. And we are still doing it in the round. We are building, or have built already, because we actually start tech tomorrow, building on-stage seating.
Brilliant.
So the Haymarket is going to look very different to how it normally does. So no, it is still going to feel like you are there amongst it.
Yeah.
And it is still in the round.
Well, it's a great party to go to, a great play to go to. So I invite everyone to go along. I'll be back there on the stage. Obviously,
oh, you
go? Oh
my God, on stage, can you please wear a fascinator?
Exactly. Beth Steel, it is lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on this episode of the What's on Stage podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the What's on Stage podcast. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment and generally rate us wherever you can. We'll be back with regular episodes every Friday, as well as a smattering of bonus episodes in between.